in Singapore. Yeah. And thank you for having the time to attend this meetup as well. So I'm here to talk about Kyber Network. Now, for those of you who haven't heard of us, you're in for a treat. You get to learn about Kyber. And for those of you who have already heard of us, you're also in for a bigger treat because you get to hear about my presentation all over again. So yeah, go on. My name is Anton. I'm a developer at Kyber Network. And if you have any questions, this is my handle. Twitter, Telegram, Discord, whatever. So just reach out to me if you have any questions. So let's talk about Kyber Network. So what is Kyber Network? Kyber Network is essentially an on-chain liquidity protocol where it empowers decentralized token atomic swaps. Now, without having to go into the detail of that statement, the only thing you need to remember is token swaps, where a user can exchange one token into another. So basically, what this basically does is that it powers seamless token exchange between all parties in the ecosystem, and it allows users to swap tokens across many different interfaces. And it allows developers to embed this token swap functionality into any application where they can build innovative applications, allowing to build a world where any token can be used anywhere. So this is what Kyber is all about. And what exactly are we trying to solve at Kyber? So let me set some context, right? We are slowly moving into a new digital economy ushered by the blockchain. And what this essentially means is that any developer can create their own token, right? And you've seen like projects tokenize the US dollar, tokenize gold, or create their own unique token with unique properties and utilities for their ecosystem or platform. But this poses some new challenges as well, especially for the users, where you have an ecosystem where there are hundreds of thousands of tokens, right? And you can't expect the user to hold like many of the tokens, right? He may only be holding like a few of them. And at Kyber, this is what we're trying to address. So let me give you a simple scenario, right? Let's say I'm a user and I'm only holding a specific token. I love stable coins, right? So I'm only holding DAI stable tokens. And for those of you who don't know, and you'll also learn in the later presentation, one DAI basically represents $1 US. So let's just say I have DAI and I want to actually interact with this blockchain game, right? Which are selling like digital cards that are digital collectibles, right? And I want to buy them using my DAI tokens. So it is not unexpected for the user to have this occur in a single step, where I, as the user, holding my stable coins, DAI, to pay for a digital collectible in a single step. But the platform, which is represented by this zombie battlegrounds blockchain game, are only interested in accepting their native token. So it could be like the Doom tokens, right? Just an example. So again, as a user, I'm expecting this to happen in a single step. But what is the reality? The reality is that I, as a user, may need to go to an exchange. So I need to go to, like the first step, go to maybe Binance and trade my DAI tokens into Ether. And then I may need to go to another exchange and swap my Ether or trade my Ether into the native tokens of the platform, like Doom tokens. And then finally, taking my native tokens, I go to the platform or the game and finally use those to purchase the card that I want. So notice how each of the steps is actually a separate on-chain blockchain transaction. And I may need to interact with different exchanges depending if this is supported by that exchange. And because of this, right, because of this multiple steps, I, as the user, may assume high uncertainty and risk. And notice how each step is a value exchange where possibly different parties are involved. And different parties meaning different exchanges and the platform, right? So how can this be solved? And how are we trying? What are the different solutions that this can be solved, right? So one solution, we let the user handle it. Hell no, not happening, right? This is basically the previous scenario that we just described, right? Where the user has to go to one exchange and do the trades himself, right? And it's a very, very ugly and bad experience for the user, and we don't want that, as part of the future digital economy. So another solution is that we have a centralized or custodian, system where we have this central authority that handles all the purchases for us, and we trust them to do this for us. But of course, it completely defeats the purpose of decentralization. So again, not a good solution. Or another is that we let the platform, which is this gaming platform that I just described, to accept the tokens and handle it, right? But it is not in their interest. Their only interest is to accept their own native tokens as a method of payment. Yeah. So this is what we basically observed at Kyber, right? What we observe is that most interesting payment and financial flows require multiple value exchanges between several parties. But the crucial step is bundling all these multiple value exchanges into a single step. And basically how it works in a single step is that I just pay with any token that I want, like with DAI stable tokens. And in the end, I get the digital collectible in return in a single atomic transaction. But behind the scenes, Kyber facilitates this token swap for you, where we swap your DAI tokens into the many different tokens. And in the end, Kyber sends back this non-fungible token or the digital collectible back to you in a single transaction. So maybe your question is, where does this liquidity come from, right? Where does this different token liquidity come from? And basically, we have something in Kyber what we call reserves. And reserves basically provide the ETH and token inventory and conversion rates, and it is powered by the community. So you can think of a reserve as basically a set of smart contracts that hold inventory for the Ether and the different kinds of tokens. And through the smart contract, it serves liquidity into the network. So just to give an example and a diagram of how it works, you can have this many different stakeholders, like maybe I have an application, I'm an exchange, I'm a smart contract, I'm a user, I'm a website, etc. And I actually need this token swap functionality, or I may need to access liquidity, right? And this is all facilitated by different reserves, right? There could be as many reserves there, and they're all offering token liquidity for different tokens. So what it basically means is that the Kyber protocol, as these applications are communicating with the Kyber protocol, it iterates through the different reserves if that token is available over there, and then does this token swap and offers that back to the stakeholder in a single transaction. Yeah, thanks. So let me give you some different use cases where you can actually embed this token swap functionality and use it in your application. So you can simply have a swapping service, right? We have our own in-house built user-facing product called Kyber Swap. So you can go to like kyber.network/swap and do, it's like a swapping service where you can swap from one token to another, and you can use like MetaMask, private keys, Ledger, etc. So it's basically just a swapping service. Or you can visit other applications that have integrated Kyber, like WeSwap, EA Swap, etc., which offer different user experiences, but basically provide the same functionality of swapping. If you're a wallet, and you integrate Kyber, this is one use case as well. So we have here some examples, like Token, which is one of the most popular wallets in China and Asia as well. We have Trust Wallet, etc. And those wallets that have a dApp browser as well, they're able to facilitate this token swap as well. And basically what this means is that the user can do this token swap without having to leave the wallet at all. Yeah. And another interesting use case is payments. We have a video to show about this. So this is a platform called Ethereum, and basically, Ethereum is basically like a Pokemon on the blockchain, right? And they only allow Ether as a means of payment, and their native token as a means of payment of purchasing this different monsters. But by integrating Kyber, you enable your users to actually pay with any token, and demonstrated by this video. So maybe I'll let you watch that for a while. This is a minute long. So here they have an official store where they're selling different kinds of non-fungible tokens or monsters. There they go. And here I'm just picking a monster that I want to buy, and you can see that the price of the monster can be. So I Ethermon as an example. Let me get to the other use cases. You can have financial services as well. So one good example is like Melonport, where they've integrated Kyber. And Melonport is basically an asset management service where you can do like on-chain rebalancing and liquidation on-chain as well. And you'll also hear about a set protocol later on in later presentations. And we have collaborated with them as well. So I hope you look forward to that presentation as well. Another use case is if you're a platform and you have a platform service like Golem or AgSec, where you require your user to pay with their native token in order to access this like computing power, for example. And by integrating Kyber, you allow them to pay with any token instead. Another use case is token sale as a service. So of course the common way of saying this is ICOs. So let's just say that instead of like allowing contribution just with Ether, Kyber helps facilitate this token swap for you, where you allow users instead to pay with any token. And lastly, one good use case is just trading and arbitraging, where you can embed this token swap functionality into your scripts, and you can have like a very unique algorithms for trading, arbitraging between the different decentralized and centralized exchanges as well. Yeah. So let me also show you like what has been built with Kyber. So these are the different projects that have integrated Kyber. So here we have an example of swaps, like the different wallets. We have some websites as well, like CoinGecko over here. We swap EA swap that I mentioned earlier on. Others are like payments, which is like Ethermon, which we have demonstrated earlier. CryptoCup, WisePass, you can check that out later as well. And some other like financial decentralized applications as well. So these are some of the projects that have embedded token swap functionality into their dApp or application. And we're basically helping power token swaps for them. So yeah, so as a summary, right, Kyber enables this decentralized token swaps, and you can embed this in your applications, whether you're just a smart contract or whether you have a full-fledged dApp. As long as you have a use case where you need this token swap functionality, then Kyber is a solution for you. And and if you want to start building on Kyber, we have a developer portal. We have some documentation over there. There's some links, developer.kyber.network. You can also visit our Telegram. We have a developer Telegram as well, but you can find them in our developer portal. So all the needed documentation for you to actually like integrate or tap into the liquidity protocol of Kyber, then you can find them all here. And of course, there are several of us here at Kyber. So everyone who is wearing a Kyber t-shirt over here, a CEO who's not wearing a Brave t-shirt, but yeah. So please talk to any of us if you're interested in working together with your Dapper application. And for those who are, participating in each single especially, if you have an idea and you want to embed token swaps, talk to us. And that's all. So if you have any questions, yeah, please let me know. Maybe I can take like 3 questions before we move on to the next presentation. Yes.
So how do reserves supply the exchange?
Sorry?
How do they?
Yeah. So basically we have, well, right now we have 2 different reserves, right? So one reserve is where you have a reserve manager that is actually doing an on-chain transaction to set the rates of a token pair. So let's just say I'm serving liquidity for DAI and KNC, which is Kyber's token, right? So depending on the strategy of the reserve manager, so I could like aggregate price data from centralized exchanges. I could have my own pricing model. But in the end, what I need to do is do an on-chain transaction to update the rates. So you can think of like a reserve as an on-chain oracle as well, because they store rates. Yeah. Yes.
On the token swap section, you had a thing that said the promo codes. Can you talk more about those and how?
Oh, promo codes. So the person that you need to talk to for this promo codes is Sunny over here in the back. Please say hi. So he's the guy who's like in charge of this. He has something in store there for you. I don't know much of the details, but he can explain it more to you. So if you want to know about this promo codes, please talk to Sunny.
Yeah, I've heard about wrapped Bitcoin incentive when we will see Kyber network.
Sorry, Wrap Bitcoin.
Wrap Bitcoin.
So we have this initiative called Wrap Bitcoin. It is basically a community-driven initiative where we're bringing the liquidity and value of Bitcoin into Ethereum. In essence, right, it's basically tokenizing Bitcoin. and it's a one-to-one peg representation. There's this website, wbtc.network, and there's a white paper there as well to give you all the details. If you'd like to know more as well, we have many of us here as well to talk about it, to discuss. Yeah.
1 minute.
Well, 1 million for WBTC, right? So we're hopefully launching by early next year, so around May, January, depending on how well things go. So yes.
Can you talk about the difference between like how the reserve works and the limit order book? So you have, so like so you have limit order books, right? So like bid-ask spreads with like,
Yes.
like different levels for every volume
Yes.
level.
Okay.
Does reserve manager set like the order book, or are they setting like a single level?
Okay. So in Kyber, right, we don't have an order book at all. So you basically, right, in an order book you have a maker and taker, right? But in this model, because the reserve manager sets the rates, then the user has to agree to the rates before the actual execution of the trade happens, right? But we have several functionality in the reserve smart contract that actually simulates a kind of like an order book, right? Wherein, for example, a user is trying to buy more tokens, like for example, 1 ETH would be equivalent to this number, this exchange rate. If he's buying like 2 ETH worth, then the price must, be higher a bit, like to simulate like kind of like an order book, right? So we do have something like that to kind of like simulate that. We have another kind of like reserve as well, what we call an automated market maker. And basically, this kind of reserve is where prices are determined by predefined algorithm, and it is depending on the inventory within the smart contract. So basically, there's this pricing algorithm that depends on the current inventory that is within the smart contract. And of course, as users like try to buy more, then based on the algorithm, then it prices like the conversion rate higher, for example.
Is that similar to Bangalore?
Yes, so it is this automated market maker specifically is quite similar to Banker, but of course we have different parameters and we have our own like algorithms there as well. Okay, so that's all. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, we can move on to the next division, which is Maker. Thank you.